I always had the intention of going back to school to train to be a psychologist and get my doctorate. At the time when I got accepted to go back, I also had gotten a really great opportunity to work in an agency that I had kind of dreamed that I wanted to work in. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be really tough. If I go back to school, I'm going to have to also let go of a lot of the contracts I've really built in my private practice. I have everything set out. It's been a year in private practice, and then I'm starting school, and I'm thinking, well, do I really want to defer? Do I want to go back to school? I have so much.
Sounds like you were grappling with it, trying to figure out what to do.
Exactly.
Do you take the job or opportunity, or do you go back to school, which is something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Meta Transitions. Today we have a guest, Esha. She is a registered clinical counselor here in BC, and she is a PsyD student studying at Adler University, and she is studying to become a psychologist. Esha also works in multiple organizations. Welcome, Esha.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Of course. Yeah. So my name is Esha Chakraborti. I'm a registered clinical counselor. So I'm currently in my 4th year of my PsyD program, which is a doctorate of clinical psychology at Adler University in Vancouver.
Yes.
I currently also work with children and families, working out of 2 different organizations, as well as private practice in Vancouver and Maple Ridge.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you. All right.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
First question. So what we do in our program here is we talk about transition stories, a way to help, those out there to feel hopeful and to be able to identify with others, that go through transitions as well.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is your transition story?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this a lot, and I realized that I could really speak to different times in my life where I've had to do transitions. But I think the most recent transition was when, so I know, as most of you might know, we both started in the same program at Adler for our master's. And so when I graduated and I became an RCC, I was looking for opportunities and jobs to go into agency work. And so I happened to come across, I didn't find any agency work that was full-time as soon as I graduated, but I did have some networks and connections to begin working private practice. So I had sort of contracts out in the Fraser Valley, and I was doing 1 day a week, 2 day a week private practice work. And I really found that was inspiring and something I wanted to do more so further in my career, but I got an opportunity to start early on.
So you just took that opportunity, seize the day. I like it.
Yeah. And in the same process, I was also just like applying for jobs and trying to do agency work. I always had the intention of going back to school to train to be a psychologist and get my doctorate. So at that point in time, I had done sort of the GRE, which is an entrance requirement test, and then applied for a school to come back. At the time when I got accepted to go back, I also had gotten a really great opportunity to work in an agency that I had kind of dreamed that I wanted to work in. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be really tough. If I go back to school, I'm going to have to also let go of a lot of the contracts I've really built in my private practice. And I was just kind of developing everything, and I was getting the going of like, okay, well, I have everything set out. It's been a year in private practice, and then I'm starting school, and I'm thinking, well, do I really want to defer? Do I want to go back to school? I have so much.
Sounds like you were grappling with it, trying to figure out what to do.
Exactly.
Do you take the job or opportunity, or do you go back to school, which is something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah. And it's just like, I've also felt like I've developed so much in business and self-employment, and that's the first time I was doing private practice, that, well, I didn't want to lose everything that I had worked so hard to do. And it was really a matter of me recognizing that, well, this is going into my doctorate. That's a lifelong dream that I have always wanted to go into. But there's so much perks of being in working, right? You're developing so much experience, practical experience. You're earning money.
Oh yeah, the money part is good because when you become a student, the money's gone.
Exactly. And so like, well, do I pay student fees, tuition, or like earn money and like start my career and start moving forward in a different life? And I have to say, my doctorate is a 5-year program.
Yeah.
So it was a big decision point in my life.
Definitely.
Like 5 years kind of, I was thinking like it's going to be on hold. A lot of my life is going to be on hold because at that point I was also like just moving out and settling into a new place. And I realized that, you know, if I'm going to go back to school, I probably have to move back with family.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you're losing your independence as well as sort of possibly a sense of self in, you know, being because you branched out in a sense. You branched out in multiple ways, you know, as an independent person, you know, within yourself, as, you know, a career person, you know, owning your private practice and earning your own money.
Of course,
And then now this decision, you know, even though it's something, as you said, you've always wanted to do, you had to wrestle with that decision of, okay, do I decide to make less money? Do I decide to put my life on hold? Do I decide to move back in with my parents to achieve this goal that I have to commit to for 5 years? I could see how that would be really challenging.
So it was really hard, especially because at that point I was also searching for agency jobs to kind of supplement my private practice. And I finally found something and I had to deny that at the point where I was like, well, I can't keep a full-time job and go to full-time school.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, because I know you've been in private practice as well, like, how has that been, like, just even developing, getting into private practice? And, like, I found there was a lot of effort in that.
I can tell you, it was tough. It was tough because my story was that I was working and going to school at the same time. Like I did the full-time work, part-time school thing for a while. And it was tough. Like there were some times when I was very burnt out, but you know, I had to keep going. Right. But I will say that, you know, the place where I relate with you is sort of that transitioning into, you know, I guess a more corporate job where there was lots of security and safety, you know, and leaving that full-time job to transition into my now counseling, you know, sphere. And trying to figure out how do I do that, right? To maintain security and at the same time do what I know I'm trained to do. Right?
Exactly.
So then I thought about some of our training and classes and, you know, stuff that we did at Adler. And I remember one of the professors cautioning us not to just jump into private practice right away because sometimes it's really slow starting.
Of course.
So what I did is I decided to apply to agency jobs in the community. And I applied to a number of not-for-profit agencies. And one of them contacted me and it had to do with family law and conflict resolution, which is very similar to the corporate job that I had, but it had sort of the counseling spin added to it. So I said to myself, well, it sounds like it's, you know, a really good balance, right? Where I was able to sort of ease into counseling. And it was a part-time position. So I was like, okay, I can do part-time position at this counseling place and start my private practice as well. And it was rough. The first year, I only had one client the whole time. You know, and a lot of people I'm sure would be discouraged, you know, but at that time, I just said to myself, I'm transitioning, you know, I had to realize that, okay, I can't give up. I have to just keep going. And I used the time to sort of build up my resources. I used the time to figure out, okay, if I'm going to have a client, what forms do I need? You know, what do I need to ensure that my business is going to run well? So I had to create a business plan. Then I started talking about, okay, when my business is going well, how do I market it? How do I want people to, you know, recognize what my business is? Exactly. And I think that first year, even though I had one client, I felt like I accomplished so much more because after that 1 year had passed, I felt like things really picked up well because I spent that time to prepare and plan for it while I was working in the agency.
You had like a foundation that was already set up. And I can relate to that as well. Just like the amount of work and the effort that we put into self-employment. Yes, it's a big piece of it, but it's just like, you know, once you get the first client in, you've kind of created something for yourself and you can see that success that's out there.
Definitely. And that's sort of what it was for me. Like I did get some discouragement, but it wasn't a lot because I thought to myself, you know, even if it's one person, I'm helping that one person.
Exactly.
And, you know, if I can do this for this one person, you know, I can do it for others too.
Yeah. So. And I think at that point in my career, I did similar to what you're saying, you know, looked into contracts and various things and kind of really educated myself about the business aspect. I enjoyed it so much. I have to say, like and this is also something that I've always dreamed that I would be in private practice in the future. Probably not so early in my career, but I had so many helpful people around me. When I had done my practicum in my master's, actually, I worked at a health center. And so the doctors there had actually taken me under to start kind of seeing their clients.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. You know, when opportunities come along, you know, it's great when, you know, I guess it sounds like there were people within that agency that recognized, you know, let's help her out.
Exactly.
And I like that when people are able to do that for others.
Of course. Yeah. And, you know, just like you, I was also able to do a lot of networking. I went to a lot of business workshops and things like that. And I really found the passion involved in it. And going back to school meant that I'm not going to be as involved in all of these things anymore.
So you had to sort of step back. You had to scale it down and you not be as involved just to be able to gain that aspect of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was big. For myself, it was a big decision because, yes, ultimately I want to see myself have a doctorate, but I also am developing something. I'm like creating something and I'm feeling really passionate about this. And I feel like I'm losing out if I start something different. It's like, it's really that transition of like recognizing
the fear of missing out. FOMO is what millennials will call it.
Yeah. And it's also the fear of like, well, you know, what would my life have looked like if I would continue in that aspect of continuing with the networking, continuing with the private practice full time. Like right now I'm still doing it, but it's more part-time.
Yes. Okay. So Esha, now that, you know, you've made the decision to become a PsyD student, and, you know, you're no longer wrestling with that, what sort of changes do you notice with yourself?
Yeah. So with myself, I think the biggest change that I noticed once I was in school was just like my mindset. Yeah. So going into the classes, I had paid all the fees for the first term and everything. And then I kind of recognized that going back to school isn't really a stopping point. It's just like, it's a continuing point. So I was really thinking about it in the sense that if I was to continue being a full-time counselor in private practice and working in agency, I would still have to do continuing education in order to maintain that. And so just going to school is my continuing education. So
I hear you.
So it's like a 5-year, it's not a gap, but it's just like me enhancing my skills and then also recognizing that I can still continue to work, but maybe in like a part-time capacity rather than a full kind of direction that I was wanting to go into.
Okay. Like, sounds like once you paid the money, you're like, okay, this is happening. And then, you know, sort of that idea of thinking about continuing education. So that idea of, okay, this is not that I'm losing, you know, all these things, but it's more you're gaining education that's going to help you in your private practice. And when you're done, you know, your schooling and you become a psychologist.
And I think the biggest part of that was also balancing my time. So I think the one of the things that I did was that, you know, if I was to go full time in an agency or private practice, then I'd do sort of 9 to 5 or whatever the hours would look like, I would do the same thing for school.
Okay.
So that way, you know, I'm still spending time with my family, with my friends, enjoying my life, but being present when I need to be present.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that idea of, you know, making sure that you have a balance.
Yes.
You know, that, you know, you're not just spending all your time worrying about school and doing schoolwork, but that recognizing that you have family who's supportive and that you need to spend time with them and have some self-care. That's great.
Yeah. And it's been great because most of the teachers and professors, I'm learning so much more out of that as well, but also applying it to my practice.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I completely hear you as a colleague, that idea of, you know, wanting to ensure that you have that balance, because it really speaks to your work as a counselor. Like, you're more rested, you're more happy, you're more open and willing to be able to help, you know, the client when you're at that place where you're present.
Yeah. And I think like also just networking and then being in the field, but as a training to be a psychologist, it's not that different from the counseling profession where you're still networking with people, but now I'm just networking in a different capacity and building on my skills.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So tell me a bit more about the networking. I know you talked a bit more about working in organizations. So what kind of organizations do you work in, and if you're open to sharing that?
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'm working with children and families with the government, as well as an organization that works with healthcare, with also dealing with children and youth, but for drop-in counseling.
Oh, nice. Nice. Okay. It's like more crisis type?
No, it's actually for solution-focused counseling.
Nice.
And maybe like if you guys were interested in it, it's called foundarybc. And so they have a new initiative where they offer free counseling for any youth aged 12 to 24.
Oh, that's perfect. We will put it in the description below. So if you want to access this free counseling, definitely, you know, look it up. We'll put the link there.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I noticed for myself is that, yes, I was losing some of the opportunities that I had originally wanted. So when I started looking into school, I had gotten this great opportunity working with even the government and doing the child and youth, but full time.
I see. Okay. Okay.
So I had to debate on whether I wanted to go into that full time or go back to school full time.
So another wrestling.
Yes.
The wrestling bit happening there for sure.
Exactly. And so, I mean, gratefully enough, like, you know, I declined it and I went back to school. But more recently, I had applied for a similar position, thinking it was going to fit well with school. I didn't, but then realized it was actually once I had gotten to a point where they wanted to call my interviews and my references that they said it was going to be full-time. Yeah. So I was like, oh no, not again. Yep. So I had to kind of decline that, but it was really helpful, and I was blessed that the person that was helping me with that process kind of said that you're a really great candidate, and I think you'd really help improve sort of the skill sets that are within this team and then carry on moving forward as a psychologist. So they basically said that let's keep your resume on hold for some time, and if an opportunity comes up in the future, we can call you back. And that did happen.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that idea of seizing opportunities again. So I'm really hearing this theme in the sense of, instead of thinking about lost opportunities, you know, you're thinking about, okay, how can I seize opportunities that will come in the future? Exactly. So, you know, not thinking negatively, oh man, I really wanted this job. It wasn't what I wanted or expected, you know, but you know, them saying, okay, you know, we will consider you because you're excellent, you know, in the field and you're a good candidate. You know, you were in more of a positive mindset in that you were like, okay, I didn't get it now, but there's a possibility I could get it in the future. So seeing that change in mindset again. Exactly.
So the difference in mindset, but really that networking and the connection. And so I think I'm really appreciative of all the people that have supported me and have like recognized that, yes, I'm still in school, but I'm willing to take on opportunities and being blessed with those opportunities as well.
Definitely. Networking is amazing. Exactly. Right? Being able to surround yourself with people who want you to succeed.
Yes. So I think right now I'm at a point where I'm working almost full-time hours and doing full-time school.
Wow, I can't imagine how stressful that would be.
It can be stressful, but I do notice that for myself, I try my best to stay grounded. So I think one of the things that I have been doing is just creating boundaries around my work time and my family time and friend time.
Wonderful. So you had that opportunity again to do the work-life balance,
Yes.
Where you're saying, okay, I need to, do this, but at the same time, create space and time for friends and family as well.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, just to kind of really, that self-care piece is very important, and being blessed with like family and supportive friends that actually understand my schedule too. It's been really helpful to adjust, and they're also quite flexible in that aspect. And I think for you yourself as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like I'm thinking about, when I was doing my master's and I had to, I had to do the work-life balance thing. Like I felt like I would go crazy. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Because working full-time and going to school full-time is really tough, and it doesn't leave a lot of time.
No.
I think what I had to do to work out work-life balance was I had to schedule in a day that was just a day where I wouldn't do any work and I wouldn't do any schoolwork.
Makes sense.
And it was my rest day, right?
Yeah.
It was the day that I didn't do anything, and it was very helpful in being able to just pause, just reflect on myself,
Yes.
spend time with people, and not worry about school or work.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm also doing at this point as well, is just recognizing that there's different blocks of time where I'm spending doing one job, and then doing private practice, and then doing schoolwork, and then spending some time blocking it out for myself as well.
Yeah. No, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, so well so far. Just wanting to ask one last question. So if there were some tips that you could give to our viewers out there that may be going through something similar, that idea of transitioning from working full time and now considering going to school, what are some things that helped you? What are some things that you can tell them that would possibly help them as well?
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I would say is the patience.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's going to take some time, especially recognizing that, yes, you could be earning money, working, and then now you're taking a break to do your continuing education. You might have that opportunity to do it through a work-related profession, or you might want to take a step back and actually do it for yourself. Yeah. But regardless, it's still a lot of patience, because spending time doing papers, working, readings and stuff, that's a lot of work. You have to be committed, and it's honestly a lot of time spent doing that. And I think the biggest piece for me in order to actually be able to do that is the support of people around me.
Yes, definitely. I hear that. I hear that for sure.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you've been through, and gone through this long journey.
Yes.
And you're at the end, hopefully. Almost at the end. And I'm sure, as you said, with the support that you have, with the networking, with that sense of patience in, and resilience to see it through, you'll be successful at the end.
And I think honestly, any opportunities that come your way, I think of it as more like choices that come up. It's not good or bad choices. It's it's more like you choose one choice and then you have more choices that lead to different opportunities.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Esha, for joining us, and wanting to, ask you, how can our viewers connect with you? If they wanted to use your services, how would they connect with you?
So my website is reliefcounselling.com, and my email address is esha@reliefcounselling.com. I have an Instagram as well, and that's reliefccs. And I work out of Vancouver and Maple Ridge for private practice. As well as I would recommend, if there's youth that are interested in drop-in virtual counseling, then the Foundry BC, which I believe you'll link as well.
I will link. Yes, definitely. All the contact information that Esha shared just now will be in our description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.